Hey, welcome back to the Free Agent Underground Show. This is Kevin Miller. Today I'm sitting side by side with my good friend and co-founder of Moolala, Jon Dale. And we're going to talk on a blogger on a topic that we did, or that I did last week, actually. If you go to freeagentacademy.com, click on the blogs. It is the September 19th entry called the One No Fail Franchise Opportunity. Last week talked about it, about some aspects in there that I have seen to be consistent amongst successful free agents, meaning not only do they have a business that's sustainable and flourishing, but they also have a lifestyle design, life values that they're living out, which is really at the core of what we talk about here. And so we talked about these things, and during the course of just conversation with you guys in the live audience, I think the topic came up, hey, should we get some folks in here who are successful free agents and see how they line up with what I wrote down here. So John and I just got back from a mountain bike ride around Rampart Range Reservoir and sat down here. That's why we're a little late to the show here. And we're going to go through this. Now, I've done stuff with John before. I assume most people know him, but he is the co-founder of Moolala, MOOLALA.com. And it is, well, here, I'll tell you, you tell what it is.
Moolala.
Yeah.
We're the daily deal site that pays you money. So we offer a different deal every day, much like our competitors Living, Social, and Groupon would. The difference is that every time someone buys, we pay a bunch of people rewards money. And so we're trying to take some of the profit that is generated by daily deals and share it with the people that are sharing the deals.
Yeah. So we're going to do more together, shows like this, and we'll talk about Moolala more and some things that we want to do with them. But today, I'm just talking to my buddy John, who is a fellow free agent, about how he lines up with what I wrote down in this blog. And I'll list it off for you. So again, today is what? Wednesday, September 21st, talking with Jon Dale, and we're going to go through what I listed here. And I'll give you, it was the 5 C's: calling, conviction, commitment, counsel, community. And where my premise came from here was that when I look at people who are, again, have a lifestyle design that they feel convicted in, are living out life values, and are successfully self-employed, this is what I see as a foundation. They weren't sitting back going, okay, I wonder what a good opportunity would be. What's a good opportunity out there? What's a good franchise model? Let me look through the business magazines for what's hot out there. That's the wrong question to ask. And so that's what I laid out. So we'll put it to the test a little bit here, but just get John's journey on how this lined up. Now, for you guys who are here live, I'll have the chat box up. I'll be looking at that. And yeah, it's always interesting, John. I'll tell you what happens. This is what I found out. If I send out alerts like 10 minutes before the show, that's when I get the most people. If I send it out an hour and a half or 2 hours, like before we went and rode, they don't show up.
I'm actually sending alerts right now to our people 10 minutes after we start the show, which I think is probably like 10 times as effective as 10 minutes before.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm like, it's like live. Look, I'm live right now on Free Agent Underground talking about Moolala.
Okay. Okay, well, then while you're talking, I'll do that.
Okay. So what am I talking about? I was typing.
Okay. All right, here.
So we're talking about the 5 C's.
Yeah. The 5
do you want to take me through them one by one?
Yeah, I
introduce it, and because I read. So Kevin, he asked me to read this blog post, prepping for taking some time with him today, and as I read through it, it was really interesting because it's like, great, like 5 C's. Like, did he have to make up words to fit with his blog post title or whatever? But as I went through and read each of these, starting from calling, ending up with community, I was like, man, it's amazing how much each one of those 5 C's fits into what I've done, with the last decade of my life, and really what we're doing now with Moolala. So yeah, it's pretty amazing.
What's honest to God truth is, I wasn't looking for 5 C's, but as I started writing them down, I realized that's just how it came out. Actually, somebody during the show last week wanted to add a 6th one, cost, because I said freedom isn't free. There's a price that you pay. But I integrated that somewhere in there. So yeah, calling. So again, this is looking at some point you knew I know you grew up, you're like me, you're one of the few who grew up in an entrepreneurial household, so you had that bent to begin with, but all your friends are getting jobs, they're going to college, get their degree, go out, get a job. You didn't, and my assumption is within calling there were things that you wanted to live out in your life that were important.
Right. So when I think of calling, I think of my friend Gary Bartolo, who I'm guessing a lot of your guys know. I think he may even work with you now. But I went to an intensive that Gary did, gosh, I guess 4 years ago now, where it was, I think, 3 days of nothing but teaching on calling and digging into, through this series of exercises that he took us through, really digging into understanding what my calling was. And I came out of that event, I want to say, I'd have to check with Gary, it might have even been 4 or 5 years ago now. It's one of his first calling intensives, and came out of that event really for the first time in my life being able to explain what it was I felt Jon Dale had been designed by God to do. And that was powerful, and it's been really interesting to see now as I took this shift from thinking, okay, if I could just start the right business or find the right job, I would magically be able to be the person I was designed to be. And what I realized that weekend with Gary was, no, actually it's the other way around. That if I will become the person that I was designed to be, that if I would live out my strengths, that if I would do all of those things, that the right jobs, the right businesses would find me. And that's exactly what's happened. So without a doubt, my encouragement would be figure out your calling. And if you're on here and you're not, maybe you're just checking out Free Agent Academy and you're not actually a member yet, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a whole calling track that you got, maybe even Gary.
Yeah, that's where they start out. That's the first course.
Okay.
You start on call. Matter of fact, you know what? I usually always introduce or welcome new members.
Okay.
While we were out riding, Karen.
While you're looking for that, Kevin calls me or sends me a message, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to come on the show. You can talk about Moolala, which is obviously great for us. We love telling the story, sharing the gospel of what we're doing with Moolala." But he said, if you're going to do it, we need to go for a mountain bike ride first. So I reluctantly loaded my bike up from my office and brought it over here, and we went for a mountain bike around the Rampart Reservoir up here, and it's just amazing. I mean, the aspens right now here in Colorado are just beginning to turn, and so there's these patches of trees that are sort of these golden oranges and reds, and it is gorgeous. And then I've actually never been mountain biking from Kevin's house before, but I've been on a lot of these trails before. So we get done with the trails, and all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, turn right, turn left here." And we turn left on this little trail, and we end up on this private trail with all these beautiful little cobblestones along the edge of it, and it's like his own private trail back to his house. So it's pretty amazing.
And so talking about that, I mean, that's part of calling, and I wanted you to talk about that. As you looked at, I mean, you got married, and kids, and what you're going after, what were those, as part of your calling, what you want to live out, as Gary would say, the effect you want to have on people. Yeah. Another part of that just is life values that are dear to you. So that's one, having the freedom to take off in the middle of the day. Now, some people would say, okay, yeah, that's great. That's that would be really nice. But you also had some regarding your person, your life balance, things for your family that were important enough to say, I'm going after self-employment to allow those things to happen. I mean, we'd say these things, more time with my kids, whatever. Were there any specifics? Life values.
So it's been a long time since I've had a traditional job. And in fact, right now, as Chief Happiness Officer at Moolala, the company that I co-founded, is more like a real job. I mean, it is a real job. I work 40, 50, 60 hours a week in an office with a boss. We one of our co-founders, Josh, is the CEO, so he's my boss now. And this is the first time in a lot of years that I've showed up at an office on a regular basis. And honestly, there's part of it that I'm loving. And one of the things that we're getting to do as we build a team, we're up to somewhere over 30 employees now, is part of my role with the company is really working with our employees and with my team, with personal development and all of those types of things. And so for me, as I look back over the last 15 years, where for the I'm guessing 13 of those I've been self-employed, right? A lot of it had to do with wanting to have control of my life. Right. I mean, as it is right now, I had to reschedule a conference call with my CEO to come and go for a bike ride and come on the show here. And so there was a short period of time where I was just a normal employee with the boss and got a little paycheck, and I just did not like the complete lack of freedom and lack of reward that I had at that point. And so having control of my own life, knowing that if things went well or things didn't go well, it was my fault. That's one of the things that I really have loved about being self-employed over the years.
Interesting that you say that, because that's a deterrent for a lot of people. Is all of a sudden they're responsible for a lot more than if you're just doing what you're told, sitting in a cubicle.
Right, but if they're doing what they're told, sitting in a cubicle, whoever they're doing that for can one day decide that they're not needed anymore, or things outside their control can sort of eliminate the need for them to do that work. And so, especially now, I think more than ever before, people feel much less secure in allegedly secure jobs than they ever have. And that's a big part of why we're doing what we're doing with Moolala, is we're trying to give people a way to generate a second source of income.
Yeah. Well, we kind of got into this. My second C there is conviction, where, because you said that you want to have control over your time, and I think everybody would say, well, of course I'd like to, but it seems it's easy to point that as that'd be a great luxury, but I gotta do what's got to be done. How did that become a conviction for you? It was something you said that wouldn't be nice, but
Sure.
It's something it's a must.
Sure. So on one hand, I think it started growing up. Growing up, actually, my parents were involved in the Amway business, which I don't know, that sort of like was a big thing, I guess, back in the 80s and 90s. You don't really hear about it anymore, but it was interesting because I grew up listening to these motivational tapes. Folks like Zig Ziglar and all these different folks that were involved in that specific business, and then other people. It's actually been fun. I've recently got back into listening to a lot of tapes and stuff. Actually, nowadays it's like stuff on my iPod, but I've been listening to Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret, and some of his other stuff. Anyway, that's sort of an aside. That stuff has been just a huge impact on my life over the years, and so I think from a really young age, my parents, my dad really particularly sort of instilled in me this value for being entrepreneurial and for the free enterprise system and for creating wealth and helping others do the same thing. And so it's been something that I've sort of felt like, okay, this I must do from the time I was 14, 15 years old. I did work a job right after my wife and I got married, so back when I was like 12. I worked a job for about 6 months selling advertising. Like literally, I looked in the newspaper and there was like one opening, and I called them and they said, yeah, come in and interview. And so I came in and interviewed, and like the next day there I am on the phone calling, selling ads, and I was pretty good at it, but I hated it. Like it was literally like a smoke-filled room. Like everybody around me was chain smoking. And that lasted about 6 months, and I just had this incredible sense of, I've got to get out of this. Like this is not, I looked at these guys sitting on either side of me who were like in their 50s doing this, and I said, this is not where I want to be. I looked at the guy that owned the company, who was like, probably an alcoholic, chain smoking, and really sick, and I just thought, like, even if I get to the height of this is, I don't want that life. And so that's when I went out and started my first business, and made so many mistakes and lost so much money and was so stupid.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Yeah. Well,
Although I still do those things.
Well, yeah. It's interesting though. Yeah, you grew up in an entrepreneurial home, and you. Oh, nice. He's got
Moolala on one side, Free Agent Academy on the other side.
Beautiful Nalgene water bottle for those listening. Some of those pains, what we look at as being chained to the desk, the confines of traditional employment are more acute to you. So you lasted 6 months. I did a 2-year stint. It was the best the job could be. I think I had a lot of autonomy, but yeah, 2 years. I think it's more acute, and it's interesting in you growing up in that household just like I did. One of the things that I'm seeing is the hardest for people right now, new members coming in. Oh, and I was going to say, new members, I got to welcome, while we were out riding, Karen Connick from Traverse City, Michigan, joined us.
Welcome.
So,
Karen.
New Free Agent Academy member. Thank you. Yeah, we'll meet after the call. But I see people who, I hear this a lot, especially with guys. They'll say, "What'd your dad do?" He worked for 30 years, 40 years, whatever, at GM or some place. That's all they ever knew. They have the hardest time really understanding what the freedoms would be like, because that's all that they know. Dad was not there at the games. They didn't go on vacations. He wasn't there when something had to come up. That's all they know, and it's harder for them to really tap into what their heart wants to do.
Yeah. To add to that, though, in 15 years now of being self-employed, there have been businesses I've had where I was more a slave to that business and more like an employee and worked more hours and hated it more than a lot of people hate their jobs. When I pursued things that were outside of actually these 5 C's that you talk about, when I ignored calling and went after just let's figure out how to make money, I created some businesses that I was a slave to, and I hated running those businesses. Thankfully, I've, with Gary's help, figured this stuff out, and it's not been that way now for about 5 years. But prior to that, some of these advertising companies that I ran, I was self-employed, and I technically had freedom, but I was so chasing after this, this American dream of just money, and it wasn't about the other things that actually really matter in life, that I hated what I was doing. And I felt burnt out, and I dreaded getting up every day. And so I think it's really, really important that we don't make the hero out of free agency, but we make the hero out of figuring out our calling, and then we find a way to be a free agent within our calling.
We can stop the show there. That's pretty much it.
Wait, you said I could talk about Moolala.
Well, but that is because, Gary Barklow, calling, the effect of your life. How are you going to do that in your work? You're able to do that now within Moolala. It's with the influence that you have, with the employees you have, and you can talk about that. Because, I had the same thing. I had a company, the one that actually worked, that had nothing to do with the effect of my life. It was a marketing company. It was making money, and it was dead to me, totally dead, because I didn't know this stuff.
There was a time 12 years ago when I was in my early 20s, mid-20s, had a really pretty successful company. Literally, we drove his and her Lexus LS 400s. I was such a jerk that I went and got license plates that said his and hers, so that anyone that saw one would know, oh, there's another one. It's terrible. It wasn't even a good car, right? Now I've got a 10-year-old 4Runner, and it's so much better than that Lexus was. But the piece of that I think is really interesting is, in the midst of all that, God allowed the business to go through enough trouble that it got to the place where I would get up in the morning basically in tears in my cereal, when my wife Amy, bless her heart, just had no idea what in the world is wrong with John, because I hated what I was doing. And I was a slave to it, and when a little bit went wrong, I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't have community, which is one of the C's, right? I didn't have the people around me who actually knew what was happening. And so, I wish I'd had this stuff. Two things, right? I wish I'd had this blog post and Gary Barklow to speak into my life about this calling stuff. If I'd had that 15 years ago, it would have been amazing. That being said, I'm very thankful for the probably 10 years that I didn't understand this stuff, because it makes me realize the value of what I've learned now.
Totally. I say there's a lot of stuff that I regret, but I'm grateful to be able to redeem it by helping other people. Okay, so calling, conviction, commitment. We don't. That's a given. Obviously, you committed to doing it long term, and you persevered.
Yeah, good example, right? So, when we sat down, my brother and I came up with the idea for Moolala, one of the things that was clear with this specific business is this is not a bootstrapping kind of business. We needed a lot of money, to hire a team and launch a big company. And one of the investors who sat down and basically said, "Hey, John, you're running this consulting firm. Are you serious? Are you going to come on board full time?" And so I had a choice. Either I was in, and I cut my ties to everything else, and I was full time with this, or I could keep doing what I was doing, and we could hire someone else to do what I would do.
Well, let me say that he says a consulting firm, so he's doing business consulting. Right. It was last year, I guess. We were sharing an office together. I don't know, a year ago, and anyways, I tweeted out a photo or retweeted or something, and it was Jon sitting at this gargantuan conference table with, I don't know, 20 people next to Martha Stewart, helping them with social media. And I think at that point you were like setting her up with her first Twitter account that then got
She already had like 1 million followers at that point.
Anyways, it's all him. It was all Jon.
She hired me to try and figure out how to ruin it all, I think. I don't know.
Okay. Either way, he had it's the American dream. It's something he cares about. He knows he's doing it. He's making money. He's got time with his family, and then here comes something else. So it was, again, just an aspect of, commitment.
I was working like 10 hours a week, making a lot more money than I am now. But what I didn't have is I was just a really, really well-paid person, right? But I was still trading hours for dollars. Now at a rate that like would make heart surgeons sick, but I wasn't getting to pour into other people's lives. And I had understood that part of my calling, part of what I wanted to do was impact others. And so I knew that at some point a business opportunity that would come along that would allow me to do that. But this issue of commitment was, basically taking these clients who were paying me well, like clients paying me 6 figures, right? And saying, hey, I'm out of this business for a while. And that was, that was a big step. And then living out of savings for, a long time before beginning to take a salary. And, like to see like the savings account go from a lot of money to no money. And still not knowing whether it's going to work or not. Right? I mean, Moolala, we have an amazing amount of confidence, and all the indicators are in the right direction. But we're up against Groupon and Living Social. We know that, and so it's a big play. And without commitment from myself, from my brother Matt, and then Josh and Mike and Steven, my the co-founders with us. Josh, talk about commitment. I mean, this guy co-founded Art.com with Mike. I mean, we're talking $1 billion company, literally, like with a B, and had been semi-retired for 4 years, sort of running a venture capital firm and doing some other things. He's working 60, 70, 80 hours a week for Moolala right now, running the company for us as our CEO. And that's, a huge sacrifice that, aside from money and all the other things that people are putting in, it's things take commitment. And so,
I love that, and I didn't mean this to be a commercial on Gary Barkalow, but it's ending up that way.
It should be a commercial.
It should be. It should. Well, and we both saw him here it's great too that we're all here. Gary's down in Colorado Springs. He came up for breakfast this morning.
Yeah,
John's
Mike and I. I mean,
I'm
Kevin. I have a lot of Mikes.
We're really not that close of friends.
Right. So, Kevin Miller, right?
Thanks.
So Kevin and I are just chatting on the phone this morning, and he's like, "Hey, I'm at Joni's with Gary Barkalow." And so I just literally turned my car around and I was at Joni's, giving Gary a hug 3 minutes later.
Silicon Valley is so lame.
So
this is the place to be for business. Woodland Park, Colorado. Well, but one thing again about Gary is you understanding what that effect is of your life, how you're wired, what your calling is, and so here you are in a job with a business that seems great, and yet you know that you want to influence people, and here you're kind of one-on-one with somebody like Martha Stewart, and you can help her business, but what are you influencing? So, and that doesn't really line up. And you also like to be with people, which is what a lot of people look at and go, gosh, self-employed. Kevin sits up here in his office and types. I do stuff like this, but my work is pretty solitary, and that's okay. I'm a writer. That's what I do best. Jon wasn't. I mean, that's part of why we shared offices. He's like, can we get together? We'll put a foosball table in and play during the day a little bit, and now half the time you guys at Moolala are playing ping pong. And
that's where we had meetings. We have a meeting around the table and we'll discuss stuff.
Well, and you and I had a meeting out on the trail. We talked the whole hour and 15 minutes we were out there.
We cut your normal time for that trail. Well, we added 20 minutes to it because I'm like, hey, Kevin, if I go with you, I will go as fast as I can. It will be talking pace for you. So I would throw topics at him. He would talk, and I would try and keep up.
Well, I'm just thinking I can get tires now, and I'll have the business buy it because we just had a meeting. It wore out my. There we go. It's a business write-off. But I love that. That's the point, though, is commitment. He risked something that should have been great because he understood his calling, his conviction, so he made a commitment. Now, counsel, and you mentioned this, and there's two things. One, I want to know about, counsel and community, how you did that with Moolala that's succeeding, but then as you just attested to, just like I did, we did, or like I didn't. We didn't do some of that with some of our earlier stuff.
Yeah.
And have the scars to prove that as well. So talk a little bit about counsel. Now, obviously, you did this with your brother. That's an immediate counsel and community in a sense, and then you were quickly.
Well, within days of coming up with the idea and saying, hey, we're going to do with this, one of the first things we did, we actually went to my dad, who's a really successful businessman and ministry leader, and said, hey, would you consider joining us as an advisor? And so we gave him a little slice of the company, and he advised us, and then we went to folks, around the technology piece, and then we started going and talking to investors, and the big thing, honestly, when you're looking for an investor is more than the money, is finding someone who actually brings something to the table. And we got really amazingly lucky, blessed.
Well, let me hit on that.
Yeah.
Because you right away go into, so your brother, your dad, and then people that they knew and stuff. What the reality is like what we have down here, the Last Seed community. That's something you had been building for years. Having that community there is what got your back, gave you the networking to do that, as opposed to just being solitary, which so many folks don't have community. And you guys listening, you don't have community. That's the premise of, or the reason to be seeking that out now, even to have the opportunity. And I shared in a actually, I don't know if it was a show we did here, but my lack of community is also what, when things tanked, there was nobody there to help me. I had no help. So on either side of it, it's just necessary. So you're attesting to having some community is what made this thing happen immediately.
And going to them for advice, right?
Counsel.
So I think the Bible says there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors, and I look back to the decisions I made in the past that I regret, like buying 2 Lexus LS 400s and putting his and hers plates on them. Stupid, right? It was stupid, and they were expensive to maintain, and just, anyway, I'm not a big fan. But it's fascinating. As I look back on that, like, I had that as a pseudo-value back then. But when I went to get counsel on that decision, like, hey, should I buy 2 Lexus LS 400s? I went to people that I knew would give me the answer I wanted. I didn't call my dad, because I knew what my dad would have said? No, buy something, pay cash for it. That's ridiculous, John. And he would have been right. And so I think it's important not just to get counsel from the people we know will agree with us, but to have people that we're genuinely accountable to that will tell us no. And that's really, really important. I'm super glad to have friends like you and Gary and some other people that if I ask you a question, you're not going to try and tell me what I want to hear. You're going to tell me, what you really believe. And I believe that's one of the ways that God. Do we allowed to talk about God on this show?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. I never know, because sometimes it's for me it's such just part of everything, right? But sometimes it's not. I know you, but
I'm gonna hang a little cross back here.
It's like a Bible verse. We're cool.
I got my Bible right there.
But I think one of the main ways that God helps us understand what we're supposed to be doing with our lives is through counsel, right? That's why wisdom, which comes from God, is found in a multitude of counselors. So.
I mean, another thing that's so relevant right here is, so here's John. He's, to a lot of people in this area, if they don't know him personally, they know it's a businessman in town, and he's been, hunted down by the Chamber of Commerce here and the City Council and all these folks, and he's a businessman in town. Everybody listening to this, you've got other business people in your area. Go find them. I mean, he charges Martha Stewart an ungodly amount of money for an hour's time. He'll go have coffee or lunch with you, especially if you pay. That's cheap counsel. You can go do that. Ask people for counsel for this. But you can hear on this, there's a lot in here. And a lot of you guys, the consummate thing that that I talk about is we have an idea or we have a desire. We go down into our basement. We think we're going to create something and come out and just succeed. We weren't able to do it. And so here are these things. I mean, it's a longer process. It's a deep process. It's a hard process. But the payoff is immense. Like going mountain biking in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And having an office at home with the kids outside. They're going to come. We're going to have to shut that door. But calling, conviction, commitment, counsel, community. Big deal. And today, I mean, you've got, Moolala that, so you're going in like an employee, you say, but no, you've got freedom. You can still do whatever the heck you want for the most part.
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of. But in that, you are
It's like
doing
the best
that
job ever. I'll say
the
that.
best job ever.
Yeah, like I want to work because I love what I'm doing, and I love what we're doing as a company.
Well, and then another piece of that, and I don't have that on here, but it's kind of like what we were talking about today, the Millionaire Next Door, which I've got sitting right over there. I'll let you borrow again. But in looking at that is, as much as we don't talk about money as a primary goal, which it's not to me, but we also know that people doing this, understanding the calling, their effect on the world, and having commitment, and doing something they're passionate about, that's where the majority of our millionaires come from. I talk about this a lot, but it's just a killer. We were talking about it on the trail today. It's such a killer reality that we've got. Well, back when the book was written, Millionaire Next Door, by I think Thomas Leonard, 20%. I think it's actually less right now, but 20% of the population was self-employed, and 85% of the millionaires came from that 20%. And that's really big. Why is that? That's what the book's premise was. It's because you find somebody, they may not be the celebrity that the world knows with a bestseller book on Amazon, but they have something that they own or have primary ownership in, like you do with Moolala. It fits them, they enjoy it, they stay in it long term, and wealth comes out of that. It's just a reality. It's a truth, so, and you're living that out as well.
Yeah, it's that's all true, and it's really interesting at this point. Having money from the perspective of being able to take care of the basic necessities and have the lifestyle that you want is great, but I've spent a lot of time thinking as we're building this company that. So people ask me a lot, well, what will happen if you guys sell the company? What are you going to do? And the truth is, I'm doing what I love right now. Like, if I had more money, I might have a BMW motorcycle, and I might take slightly different vacations. But as far as what I get to do every day, I love what I do. I love where I live. I love my friends. And so I think that I'm a firm believer that if you will figure out these things, these 5 C's that you're talking about, and go pursue those things, money is going to come and find you, because there's something about finding someone who's really living in their calling that we want to be around, we want to learn from, and people will pay for whatever that is. Money is it's one of the world's measures of value, and if we're offering a lot of value and we don't primarily concern ourselves with extracting financial reward from that, you'll get to the place where people call you on the phone, send you emails and tweets saying, hey, I want to work with you. And that's what happens. I mean, now I pretty much turn everyone down, but I still almost every week someone contacts me wanting to pay me money, which is great. It's a fun place to be.
I'm always aware of how people discount themselves. They're sitting there going, it sounds like a little fairy tale thing. You guys live up in the mountains and happen to be in the same place, and Gary Barkalow comes up through. But there's that point too of it's just people that were not automatically successful, but they're just kindred spirits. So we all just had some conviction, some commitment going after our calling. That's what brought us together. When you and I met, which I'm going to guess is, I don't know, 4 years ago.
That was 4 or 5 years ago. I would have been just starting out on the consulting stuff, because we had just done the Eldridge thing, right?
Yes.
Well, at heart, that community. And at that point, they probably weren't even paying me. I'm not sure what the timeline was on all that, but I would have been at the end of running an advertising deal, the little sales team, hating what I did, right? And yet we connected, and
well, that was my point. We connected.
Wait, before we lived you lived this life up here in the trees with the private trail that comes out of the national forest to your house, and there's like little ferries, and it's just. But I mean, like I knew you when you lived in a trailer.
Right. Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
That it's usually kindred spirits. I mean,
Yeah.
you guys doing this and going after that, you will, kind of like Jon says, I mean, you need to have some intentionality about it, but like he says, money will find you. So will people that are kindred spirits, and you'll find them in your church, especially if you just talk about what you're doing. You'll find them in your church or in your community, or it's amazing, or over the internet and networking stuff, because that's where you start communing and you come together, and then you have these realities that build and grow, and you live in a place and you get to hang out with somebody like John, like I do, and have breakfast with a guy like Gary Barkalow. And I hear these stories, but they grow, and there is some organic aspect, but it's people who are intentional about what they cared about and understanding their heart. And if there's anything that I want to get across during this time together, it's that. Now, I do, before we wrap up, what time is it? But before we wrap up, I want to just shamelessly, tell them a little bit more about Moolala and where they can find you, specifically where they can hook in with you.
Okay, so I'm available at my blog. I'm actually taking a blogging sabbatical right now, but there's lots of articles to go read. So jondale.com, Jon, there's no H, jondale.com. I'm at Twitter at Jon Dale. I'm on Facebook. I think facebook.com/Jon Dale for my business page, and then I'm not hard to find. Just Google Jon Dale and I'll show up in the top few pages or whatever. Moolala. Okay, so one of the things that I'm sure you hear Kevin talk about a lot is sort of the idea of having multiple streams of income, right? And so regardless of what you do as a free agent, it makes sense to diversify. I hear your dad talk about, he makes money from books, he makes money from affiliate deals, he's got all these different streams of income. I know you're the same way. And so what we wanted to do was build an opportunity for people where they could get great deals and save money on stuff, that they could get introduced to new things in their community, and they could develop a secondary stream of income. Now, this is not an opportunity designed for most people to set them free where they don't have to work anymore. This isn't some kind of get-rich-quick thing. For most people that are successful with our rewards program, they might be making, $50 to $500 a month, right? Which is a great way to take an extra date night with your wife, buy your own vouchers from Moolala, pay for your Starbucks habit or whatever. We do have some people, we just launched this new buy and share reward, which is really pretty cool. The basic way our program works is if you refer someone to Moolala, and they buy something, they get paid 2% of it, and you get paid 2% of it. If that person refers someone else, right? So if I refer you, and you refer Justin, okay, which is probably exactly what happened. If Justin buys something, Justin gets paid 2% of that, Kevin gets 2%, and I get 2%. And we pay that down to 5 levels. And so what that ends up looking like if you look at, we call it a pay matrix, if you look at my pay matrix, I've got about 200 people over the last year that have signed up directly under me. And then those 200 people have people who have people who have people, and there's now over 10,000 people. That I don't know 9,800 of them. I don't even know all the people that signed up under me. But there's all these people that if they see a deal at a local restaurant that they like, or one of our national deals, and they buy something, I get paid 2% of it. So that was pretty cool, and I was making, several $100s a month from that. Then we launched Buy and Share, because what we said is we want to pay people for buying and sharing with people. So, phone call. So what we said is we want to pay people for buying and then sharing it with people if those people buy. And so we take about a third of the revenue from each of the deals and we pay it in Buy and Share. And so the way that works is if I buy something that's a $30 voucher, right, and I turn around, I get this special Buy and Share link. If I share that now and you buy from that link, not only do I get the 2% because I referred you, but I also get a $10 reward payment, right? And the other thing that's exciting is this is completely independent of our pay matrix. So if you buy something and share the link and I buy, even though I'm not in your pay matrix, you'll still get the Buy and Share reward. Oh, nice. if you're the one that moves me to make the purchase. And so we're super excited about this. We've got one lady that earned over $600 on Tuesday in Buy and Share rewards. Multiply that out times a month and it begins to get pretty exciting. So again, the goal here is not, and we're not trying to help people get rich, but we do believe that we can help people save some money, and we believe that for some people they'll be able to earn some significant income. But for most people, it's probably a way to, make an extra $50 a month or something, and get introduced to some fun products and stuff in your local area. So.
Well, to me, it's also just a relationship sales model. I mean, we all want to be thanked for giving our referral somewhere else. If I send somebody to a restaurant, matter of fact, here in town, Bad Rock Automotive. So we had a friend here in town. They had car trouble. I sent them to my buddy Mac, who owns the one of the mechanic shops, Bad Rock Automotive. Sent it there, and I think I have it sitting here. And I received back in the mail a week later or something, I think it was a $25 gift certificate for Swiss Chalet. Man, that made me feel like he cared that I did it. It was a thank you. And in some sense here, so I bought the little mini business cards from Moo Cards. Right? I bought it off of Moolala, lots of moos in there. So I bought the little card, and I told a bunch of people about it. They bought that. Right. Moolala said, "Hey, we recognize that you had a bunch of people buy this, and we'll thank you." And then boom, 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 I've got money. There you go. There's a card.
Moolala, Moo Cards.
Moolala, I've got.
Aren't they the coolest thing ever?
I got mine sitting around here somewhere.
Chief Happiness Officer. But yeah, that's exactly right. So I wrote a blog post like at the end of last year. It's the last blog post on my blog until I quit my sabbatical on the blogging thing. But go to jondale.com and read that post, and we talk about this idea of social capital. Right. Because what I believe is you look at companies like Facebook and Groupon and Living Social and name your favorite.com, eBay, whatever. The way they have really grown is they've provided an amazing product that people love and they share with others. And the financial benefactor of that is Mark Zuckerberg, who, nothing wrong with Mark. He came up with the idea for Facebook, right? Yeah. Unless you've watched the movie, and then we're not sure who came up with the idea. But what's happening is we've got a few people at the top getting really rich. Right. And so what we wanted to do was say there's lots of businesses that are going to be built on people sharing their social capital. I joined Facebook. Facebook is only useful to me if my friends are members too, so I refer all my friends. The value I get back from that is now I'm more connected with my friends. So I don't mind that Zuckerberg is making billions. But what if we could combine the two things? What if we could say, if you share, we want to pay you for that, right? And so, like I said, most people, $50 a month would be a great goal to aim for. It'll pay for any vouchers you want. If you want to buy a voucher, it'll be free, and we like that. Because when we design our rewards program, we always sit around and we say, okay, what can we do so we can pay the most possible, the highest number of people, the most amount of money, right? And I think most people, when they sit around and design a rewards program, they're going to say, how can we motivate people to get us customers where we have to pay the least number of people the least amount of money? And we get excited when we get to send people those blue envelopes with a check in them. So,
well, okay, so on Moolala, I get the benefit.
Do you ever like a site code? Like, can we tell people to go to your? Do you know what it is?
Free agent.
.moolala.com?
Yes, there you go.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So if you go to if you're not signed up yet, don't sign up directly on the site or under me. Go to freeagent.moolala.com. Sign up, and that way Kevin earns rewards when you build a huge network and make a lot of money. Kevin will get a little tiny slice of that.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. A company like, I assume most people know about Zappos.
Love Zappos.
Owned by, what's the guy's name?
Tony Shea. Well, it used to be. They sold to Amazon.
Yeah. Okay, but that guy, he created a culture. You wanted to not only buy from them because they had a great product, good prices, great, customer service, but the culture of the company became just as well known as well. They had fun and they liked what they did. Okay, so to me it's worthwhile because I get to see these guys. So John's brother's down in Austin, Texas. That's where they're actually headquartered. Right. But here in Woodland Park, Colorado, he has an office right below our good friend Dr. Randy James, right under there, and they've got just a big mammoth room with all their tech,
like concrete floors. I mean, it's like totally unfinished, right? It's like it's .com startup space. But you're right. I mean, for us, the guys at Zappos and Tony and those guys are my heroes, and we wanted to create an environment that people love working in. I talk with my team all the time. We got 3 stakeholders, right? We have our employees, who we want them to love coming to work every day. And if you're looking for a job, I know this is probably not the right place to plug employment opportunities, but go to Moolala.com and click on careers down at the bottom, because we've got a bunch of openings right now. We're trying to hire people, and if you happen to be in Austin or you want to relocate there and love what you're doing, that doesn't help the free agent thing. Okay, moving on. Bottom of our site, click on careers.
But if you need to go get a job as an apprenticeship to learn business and culture, then that's a great place to do it.
Yes, absolutely. And we will make you love your job and you'll never want to leave. But yeah, we talk about our employees are one of the stakeholders, right? We want them to love what they're doing and find it fulfilling. And then we get to work with these merchants. And what we try and do with our merchants is drive a ton of business to them. And so we want them to love working with us. And then we've got a third set of stakeholders, which is our members, the people that we send deals to every day. And so that's the team that I run, is the member experience team. And we every day get to interact on the phone and chat and email with these people, and our goal is to wow them. And so, it's this phenomenal opportunity that we have 3 different sets of people that we really want to wow.
Well, and then yes, and then the culture too. The fact that when you go in there, and there's a ping pong table and big beanbag chairs, and you guys are hanging out and having fun and going mountain biking during the middle of the day and shooting people who come in the door with Nerf guns. So gives it that personality. And this is part of your business 101, just on branding and having an image. I'm not aware now. I may be ignorant of it, but I'm not aware that. I subscribe to Living Social and Groupon. I don't know anything about them. I know that they're big players. They have a lot of money behind them, and they get some decent deals. But I don't know of a culture, and I see that as being such a unique niche for you guys too. That here's a company that has a face on it.
We want to have a personality as a business, right? And we want people to love interacting with us, whether they are employees, members, or merchants. And so we think that's super important. And we have a ton of fun at our office, but my guys work harder than any other team I know. And so I think there's a balance. Like we work hard and we play hard. And the magic is not having the foosball table, right? The magic is creating a culture that people love being at work, and then you get the best work out of people. They love what they're doing, and I have this mantra that if I want the people that my team's interacting with to love the interaction, then my team better love what they're doing. And I think if you came in and talked to my team and asked them, is this the best job you've ever had in your life? I think you'd get a resounding yes.
It sounds, again, big Gary Barkalow ad again. One of his statements is, if there's death in your heart, you can only give out death. So if you got customer service people there that hate their job, how the heck?
It's the way most companies are, right? When's the last time you called a customer service rep at a company, dialed a 1-800 number, hit 1 to talk to support, and talk to someone that you could tell was loving their job, right? But I can give you 2 numbers to call. Call Zappos, and then call Moolala. And if you call either one of those companies, you're going to talk to someone who loves what they're doing.
The best testimony for this whole show that we're doing here is your passion for what you're doing, your care. You know it, and that's my goal, is that people would care that much about what you're doing. And I generally find it when you're able to design what it is that you are after. But you can hear over and over the effect that Jon has, the fact that he wants to have the employees. I'm not an employee guy, obviously. Here I am selling free agency, but I'm a crappy manager. I do my best work in solitude. I really do, and I write. And so I know, I understand that, and so I've crafted work around that. Jon's different in that way, and so he's crafted work around it. It actually reminds me somewhat. That's a bad analogy. I'll use it anyways. My dad and Dave Ramsey are buddies, right. And my dad sits over in his office by himself for the most part, writing. It doesn't have. I don't think he has any employees now. Really, a lot of independent contractors, a team.
Right.
Here's Dave. They get together every Wednesday morning at Dave's office that he owns, the 4 stories or whatever it is at the place with. I have no idea how many employees. He loves it.
You're right. He loves that because he loves building a culture. And I know a lot of guys on his team, and they love working there, and they work harder than almost anyone I know. But you're right. Yeah.
Again, comes back to our point here on understanding your calling, being convicted that you've got to. Jon. Here's the tragedy. Imagine if Jon, and I can say this for myself and Gary and all the people we've mentioned, but imagine if Jon. If you had stuck in that advertising thing, or being an employee somewhere, if we said, hey, we'll pay you $250,000 to go to a cubicle down in Colorado Springs, a corner office down in the Springs at an ad firm, whatever, give you the company Lexus, and you get 4 weeks of vacation a year, and you're doing something, you're good at doing it, you can do advertising, you can do sales, but it doesn't fit this stuff, you would not be I wouldn't know you for one, and you wouldn't be the guy that you are, that's passionate and inspiring others and inspiring your family, and that's at the heart of what.
Let me throw this out there, because I think a lot of people, they're that guy, right? Yeah. They're in that position. Sure. Is the answer to finding fulfillment is not a different position first. It's understanding calling. True. Becoming that person, and being that person will create a way for yourself regardless of the environment you're in. I saw someone the other day, I think it was at your event, I dropped by for an evening, and one of the folks there was chatting with me, and they said, what would you do, or something to the effect of, what would you do if Moolala shut down and you couldn't do your consulting stuff? And I'm like, I have no idea, but I am convinced if I was just me, and lived out of that and was myself, that I'd be able to create something that provided for my family and that I love doing. Because it's much more about the internal than it is about the external. And if you can figure this stuff out internally, and going through that calling track with Gary is the best thing. I mean, honestly, like, again, plug for Free Agent Academy. If you're not a member of Free Agent Academy and you're interested in being self-employed, people pay tons of money just to come learn Gary's calling stuff. And how much is it a month now for Free Agent Academy?
For us, it's $125 a month, and his course is first.
Yeah, so for like $125 a month, which is crazy, right? So for less in a year than you'd probably pay to go to an intensive weekend, you can go through this stuff on calling and all these other classes that you have. Gary alone is worth the cost of membership for a year, without a doubt.
Sure, absolutely. Now you can, since we're tooting his horn as well, he's at thenobleheart.com.
Yeah.
It is or is it nobleheart.com?
Google Noble Heart.
Noble Heart, you'll find him. Nobleheart.com or The Noble Heart. And he does do events. He actually has a members community similar to what we have at Free Agent Academy, though you're not allowed in there right now unless you've been to one of his events. So don't bother with that. Go to one of his events. You can find it. He's got an event calendar. He just did one in Pennsylvania. He's got one. Matter of fact, you want to come to Colorado, he's doing one in Buena Vista, which is an hour and a half west of here.
It'll change your life.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like,
I think it's the end of this month or October or something like that. So it'd be a great one to come out, see it'll be the height of the fall colors in Buena Vista, which people take tours there just to see the aspens turning. I think it's right about that same time. That's where we saw him. He's on his way to go look at that camp today. So another plug for him.
Yeah.
Jon, man, thanks. So you're going to be hearing more from Jon. He's doing shows. Can you tell him about that? Is that something everybody can tune into?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to livestream.com/Moolala, or just come and like us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Moolala, and then there's a live stream tab on the left-hand side there. Go there. We've got a schedule. We do them a couple of times a week. And we're testing different times right now to figure out the best times. We did one this morning. I know we've got another one on Friday. But yeah, come check us out. We'd love to have you on the show. You can ask questions, all that kind of stuff. But we use that as a chance to introduce people to Moolala, to make announcements about the new rewards and payments we're doing and that kind of stuff. So we have a lot of fun.
So you'll see us doing some more together. We need to. It's stupid that we haven't done this since we live not far from each other at all. So you'll be hearing more and just about this journey, the people he's involved with, and I just love to bring you guys counsel from people who have been there, because he started off just like I started off at the bottom of this, made lots of mistakes that we'd love to keep you from making.
Yeah.
It helps redeem some of our regrets, actually. But this again is the heart of so much of it. So I hope you heard Jon's message loud and clear on this. If somebody wants to, if you want to really I'd really love to just touch base with him. Find you, is Twitter like the #1 place?
Yeah, so just send me. I don't follow a lot of people on Twitter, but you can send me an @message like @Jon Dale, and I'll get that. If you want to send me an email, just go to jondale.com and there's a contact page on there. I don't know, speaking, that kind of stuff. I honestly, I don't really take outside clients very much right now. So, but for the right price, for a cup of coffee in Woodland Park, Colorado, I'd love to spend an hour with you.
There you go. Fly out here, drive out here, and
it'll be free. We'll just have coffee,
and we'll take you mountain biking.
Yeah.